All right, everyone. John McCain at this point has had more of a send-off than fucking Ronald Reagan, and I'm going to tell you why. The entire establishment saw him as sort of the symbol of the Never Trump stuff, and they're trying to memory hole the fact that John McCain once called his wife a cunt in public. They're trying to whitewash the fact that he's a desperate warmonger, that he was too inept to run a proper presidential campaign, that for the last 2 years he's done nothing but obstruct everything, that he's one of the main architects of Obamacare, by the way, even still being in swing. They're trying to convince people that he's some sort of great warrior. He got shot down over Vietnam once. The fact that he encouraged us to invade everyone else in the fucking world, no, that's not a problem. The send-off that he's getting is so surreal. It's surreal because, number one, he's a senator. He's not a president who's died. He's just a senator. He's just a career politician who happens to have been in a prison camp for a while, and all of a sudden he's getting a send-off normally reserved for royalty or for U.S. presidents. Those are the only two groups of people worldwide that get this kind of treatment when they fucking keel over. So it's a little bit of a symbolic reference. Number two, look at the sort of people that are there. It's like his pallbearers. Okay, I'm going to have Michael Bloomberg on one side with Joe Biden behind him, and Joe Biden probably cracking jokes the entire time and poking the dead body because that's his fucking sense of humor. Meanwhile, I'm going to have Russ Feingold on the other side among all people. It was really, really weird if you looked at a list of all the people that were pallbearers. Like, yeah, I'm gonna have David Duke on one side and Louis Farrakhan on the other. Back there, I'm gonna have Nelson Mandela's son. It doesn't make any sense. It's like all over the place. These are people, I guess he had personal. Why didn't he have Hillary Clinton be a pallbearer? Is it because she can't stand up, let alone lift anything? Yeah, I think so. Then they drag out George W. W and Obama were both there. And Bill Clinton, of course. I don't think he gave a speech, if I remember correctly. W gives a speech. Eulogizes John McCain. He's like, oh, he was a great lover of peace. Blah, blah. I'm thinking to myself, you've got one of the biggest warmongers of the modern era calling one of the other biggest warmongers of the modern era a lover of peace. And nobody finds it weird. These people glazed over, the entire establishment, all of the sheep watching on TV. Oh, John McCain, cry. Now's not the time to criticize him. Let the family grieve. Oh, he was a great man. They don't make him like that anymore. I wish that were true. I wish they didn't. I wish that they didn't make desperately corrupt, opportunistic warmongers anymore. I think it'd be a better country and a better world. George W. is in no position to call anyone a lover of peace with a straight face. How could he get up there? He's usually so given over to suddenly doing that shit-eating monkey grin of his. And yet he gets up there, he manages not to even crack a little grin. While calling John McCain a lover of peace? Yes, sure. Oh yeah, I love peace. I want to napalm everything. There was a picture of John McCain and his fighter from the Vietnam era, like flying off into the sun, and it like represents him going to the pearly gates. And somebody put it on Twitter, and they're like, "Oh, I love this picture of John McCain about to napalm the pearly gates." It's like, yeah, that's John McCain. John McCain wanted to bomb Iran. He loved the idea of invading Iraq. He loved the idea of invading Afghanistan. He loved the idea of drone strikes. He basically would call you a coward, a lily-livered, yellow commie son of a bitch, basically, if you didn't want to do all the bombing that he wanted to do. And George W. was very similar. George W. initially, with his axis of evil comments, isn't it kind of clear that George W. initially wanted to invade North Korea as well? We would have been in a three-front war. George W. Bush utilized 9/11 as a political cudgel to support proxy wars in the Middle East and Afghanistan in order to secure oil, to secure opium, and to extend the U.S. grasp of the region between those two areas around Iran specifically, but also to choke off Russia. It's part of the grand chessboard. John McCain loved the idea. The only differentiation McCain ever had with George W. Bush is that John McCain wanted to invade even more countries. So to hear him referred to as a peace lover, he was a total hippie, says George W., just like me. Are you crazy? Are you fucking insane? George W. Bush at the time, his approval was like sub 30 there after Katrina, after Iraq. It was funny. The American people never punished George W. Bush politically enough for Iraq. They waited until Katrina to abandon him in droves. Now people look back and they're like, oh, he wasn't that bad. Oh, George W.'s okay. Okay, 500,000 dead in Iraq, dead civilians. Thousands of dead U.S. troops, tens of thousands injured with PTSD and so forth. Thousands of people dead, tens of thousands of civilians dead in Afghanistan. Non-stop fighting, we're still there to this day. It's still not fully stable. Katrina, thousands and thousands and thousands of homes destroyed, tens of thousands of people displaced, total incompetence. A carpet-bagged FEMA official overseeing a response that took 3 fucking days to start, so that as the water was receding, people were literally on a mass exodus out of Louisiana and marching to basically wherever. They became refugees displaced in the United States itself. This was all Bush's doing. But I'm supposed to sit there looking at the hundreds of thousands directly killed and overall millions indirectly killed by his fucking foreign policy, the misery spread by George W.'s totally inept economic platform, his stupidity, his debt spending, his proxy wars, his police state and censorship surveillance ass bullshit. I'm supposed to take him seriously when he talks positively and says that someone's a peace lover who wanted to do even more damage. Just one neocon eulogizing another warmongering asshole. John McCain is a warmongering son of a bitch. I'm glad he's dead. It will be a good day when George W. finally dies in his sleep. And he probably will. Like, you look at Herbert Walker, he's obviously got the longevity genes. He's going to be worse off than Hillary Clinton because he'll live longer. It's going to be insane. And the day he dies, watch, the establishment, the day that George W. dies, they won't mention Katrina, they won't mention Iraq, they won't mention the misuse of 9/11, they won't mention the Patriot Act, they won't mention the NSA, they won't mention any of this. They will only talk about how he was cute and sometimes said bumbly little Bushisms, and so it was really, he's a sign of the times, and he had it rough, and he wasn't really that bad. He was a great American. No, he's not. He's an asshole. The fact that he was invited to this funeral is a farce. It's a farce that the news media isn't even attempting to hold accountable even slightly W or McCain for their various crimes. They've totally, utterly abandoned their responsibility. There is 0% journalism in the coverage of McCain's funeral. And in some people say, well, Fox News is better than like MSNBC or CNN. They're more honest. Look at how they're covering the funeral. They're bending over backwards to suck John McCain's dead cock off. That's really what's happening. Now, fuck Fox News, fuck Breitbart and all these groups. And they're doing the same thing. Yeah, George W., which is a great piece. George W. talking about peace. Now, the only time that he credibly talked about peace was talking about humans and fish living in peace together, but when he formed that, offshore fish sanctuary off the shores of Hawaii or something, like the nature preserve. That's the only time that he genuinely did anything that would bring peace to the world, and it didn't even have anything to do with fucking human beings. Other than, hey, you can't fish here. Maybe one person won't get eaten by a shark when their boat capsizes. Wonderful time. That's about all. Peace out.